It's good to see everyone tonight. One of the things I realize about presenting, I've done a lot of presenting, but it's really scary when there are people you love in the crowd. It's really easy sometimes just to share stuff with strangers, but I'd like to share with you a story tonight about one of my best years ever. And I'd like to begin with a verse, and it goes like this. If you had a year to live, would you abandon everything for neglected adventures or people forgotten or not yet met? If you had a year to work, would you work longer or shorter, with more vigor or intention, with different strategies upon which your legacy would depend? Would you measure your legacy differently than before? If you had a year to love, would you fall in love with your partner again? Your work, your health, your life? And when it was said and done, would you save the last dance as a victory dance for a life well lived of love and service? I'm thinking upon these things tonight. Let us begin. In 2007, I read a book by Stephen Levine entitled A Year to Live. And he invited people to think about what would you do if you only had a year left to live. And I decided to climb 50 mountains with 50 friends on my 50th birthday. I took 2 weeks off every month for 12 months and literally had one of the best years of my life. I'd like to share with you a few stories about what this year looked like. I can't share all of them, but actually on my 50th birthday, I climbed a mountain called Vestal Peak. It is a beautiful ridge line going up to a summit. And as we started the mountain, a mountain goat actually blocked our way, and we couldn't get him to move. And this happened over near an hour, and finally I looked at him, I bowed to him and asked permission to climb his mountain, and he actually bowed back and walked away. Another peak in the Sierras, with my good friend Ed Maggart, who's in the crowd tonight. We spent 24 hours sitting still by an alpine lake and then spent near 24 hours actually climbing the mountain the next day. It was a powerful example of kind of stillness and action coming together. The last peak that I wanted to mention that I climbed was actually in Canada, and I was about 1,000 feet up on the rock face, 50 feet out over my last piece of protection, looking at a long fall, and I was stuck. I couldn't make the move. I suddenly looked down in the valley, and I noticed my tent way down in the valley. And I started thinking, I would like to be in my tent. But then I realized for 20 years I had wanted to be on this mountain, right in this spot. And I realized the only thoughts that actually served me at that moment was how do I actually do this move? Now, I had planned to share with you a list of kind of insights from my one amazing year. But what I want to do is just finish off with a couple other stories, because I think it's fairly poignant that at the end of my year to live, I drove myself to the emergency room, walked through the double doors and collapsed and almost died. I woke up 3 days later and the doctors basically told me I may not make it. And if I did, I would need a heart transplant. Well, I'm happy to say 4 years later, I'm heart healthy and I'm back to climbing mountains. And there are a lot of things that I learned along the way, but one of the biggest lessons I learned, in order to flourish, you have to take some risks. So instead of offering you a list of insights tonight, I'd like to tell you one more story. And that story is about my mom. During this year to live, she told me that she had never had a birthday party ever in her life. And so secretly, I organized about 40 or 50 of her friends to actually write love letters. And she sat like a queen in her house where she lived, 75 years old, while all of us read our love letters to her. And what I realized, that one amazing year wasn't just about climbing mountains and wasn't just about big adventures, but it is about really showing up with love with the people that you care about. I'd like to finish with a quote by Oliver Wendell Holmes. He basically said, I would not give a fig for the simplicity on this side of complexity, but for the simplicity on the other side of complexity, I would give my life. Thank you, and I wish you all an amazing year.